All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue to look at 4.2, slope and rate of change. So if you could turn to page 6 of your notes and look at question number 1. Now remember, when we did question number 1 today in class, we drew in our slope triangle and we figured out what the rise over the run was. Right? So we figured out that the rise was 4 and the run was 2. So we said that the slope was 2. Okay? But here's the thing that I want you guys to understand. Really, technically, this coordinate right here is 2, 1. Okay? Because it went to the right 2 and it went up 1. All right? And then this coordinate right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this coordinate right here is 4, 5. Now, the fact that you guys got 4 right here for the rise is by looking at your y coordinates. This was 5, this was 1. So basically all you did was subtract the 5 and the 1 to get the 4. Okay? And then the run we figured out was 2, and we got that from our x coordinates. So we just took the 4 and the 2 and we subtracted those two. Sorry about that. So we took the 4 and the 2, and we subtract those 2 and we get the 2. So basically what you're doing is you're subtracting your y values, that's the rise, and you're subtracting your x values, which is the run. So if you look back at page 5, the slope formula, there's 2 of them. There's rise over run, and then the other one is where we're going to subtract your y values for our rise and subtract your x values for the run. So when you subtract the y values, you would take the second y value and you would subtract the first y value from it. So we would say y2 minus y1. But here's the thing that you need to understand. This 2 right here is a subscript. It's below the y. It's not y squared. And this 1 is not y to the first power, okay? Over x2, we're going to subtract our x values, minus x1, all right? So if you guys could go down and let's look at question number 5 and number 6, and then we'll apply the slope formula to question number 7. Just to give you a heads up, when you watch the next segment of the video, it's going to be from an older video, so you're going to see a picture that is not on your paper. You're still looking at the right paper, and the question number might be different as well. When will the slope of a line be positive? Well, the slope of a line will be positive when the line is going up, right? So it would look like this. Sorry, let me just do that. So it would look like this. This is a positive slope. Now, let's talk about the rise over the run. So the rise is positive, the run is positive. So in this example, you have a positive slope, right? This is still positive. Let's look at it a different way. What if I went backwards? The rise is negative, the run is negative. So in order for the slope of the line to be positive, the rise and the run need to be the same sign. Okay. So when will the slope of a line be negative? Well, same thing, I'm going to draw it out, right? So if I were to go from here to here, this has a negative rise, and this has a positive run, right? So the signs are different. See how they're not the same? Let's try it the other way. Let's go backwards. So here, the rise is positive, the run is negative, right? So in order to have a negative slope, the rise and the run have opposite signs. All right, let's skip to question number 7. Determine the slope of the line that passes through 2, -5 and 7, -10. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the slope formula, and I'm purposely going to color code it so you can understand where all these numbers are coming from. So I'm going to color code y2 is blue, minus, and then for y1 I'll use red. For x2 I will use green, and then for x1 I will use purple. okay? Just so that you can understand where this is coming from. So right here, if you look at this 2 right here, we know that this is an x value because the x coordinate always comes first in our coordinates right here. So this 2 is my x value, and this is my first coordinate. So this 2, I'm going to call, is going to be my x1 because it's my first x value, okay? So now that means that this -5 right here is my y value in my first coordinate, so it has to be y1. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. And then the 7 is the second x value, so I'm going to call this x2, all right? And then this -10 is my second y value, so I'm going to call this y2. So now all I have to do is plug in all of my information into the slope formula, okay? So the y2 is -10. Minus the y1 right here, we figured out, is -5. So it's going to be -10 minus -5. Be really careful about what that, about the fact that it's minus a negative, okay? And then in the denominator, x2 we figured out was 7 minus 2, which is our x1, right here. So once you've identified this information right here, the rest you just got to plug and chug in your information, okay? So this will turn into a positive, right? So you get -5 over 7 minus 2 is +5, so you end up getting -1. So my slope is -1 over 1, which means that it would go down 1, because that's my rise, okay? And then it would go to the right 1, because that's my run, okay? Because this is technically -1 over +1. All right, so in number 8, the first thing that I want you to do is write out the slope formula. So go ahead and do that. Again, I'm going to color code this. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Please identify what y2, y1, x2, and x1 are in your coordinates. Press pause, identify it, and then come back to me. Okay, you should have that -5 is x1, that 7 is y1, because these are your x and y values of your first coordinate, okay? And then you should say that x2 is -5, and that y2 will be 9. Okay, so this right here will be y2. So now I can go ahead and plug in all of my information into the slope formula. So I get equals, I'm going to fill in my minus signs so I can have them ready to go. So it's going to be 9 minus 7, just plugging in all the information that we figured out here, over -5 minus -5. So now here's where things get tricky right here. And we discussed this a little bit in class when I saw you guys. So this will turn into a positive, right? So I end up getting, I'm just going to go over here a little bit so I have some room. 9 minus 7 is 2. -5 plus 5 is 0. I'm going to try to divide 2 into 0 equal pieces, which we said is impossible. So that means that my slope will be undefined. Remember, you can never divide a number by 0. All right, let's do one more of these and then we will move on. All right, so same thing, find the slope of the line. So I'm going to say m equals, and then I'm going to fill in all of my information. So I've got y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Oops. Identify which one is which. Press pause, come back to me when you're ready to go. Hopefully you identified your points as the way that we did right here. So let's go ahead and do this right here. So you would end up getting 8 minus 8, right, over -9 minus -7. And then 8 minus 8 turns into 0. and then negative 9 minus negative 7 becomes negative 9 plus 7, which is 2. So I end up getting 0 divided by 2. I can divide 0 into 2 equal pieces. You get 0. So your slope of this line is 0, which means that this is going to be a horizontal line, okay? Because every horizontal line has a slope of 0. And number 8 is going to be a vertical line because every vertical line has an undefined slope. Remember, you can't walk on a vertical line. It's impossible, okay? All right, so let's take a look at number 10. It's a word problem, so we're going to underline all of our key information. Reese and Cassandra are riding the bus. There's a fee to use the bus and an additional rate per mile, okay? So we've got a fee, and then there's an additional rate per mile. Reese goes for 5 miles and pays $7. Cassandra goes 9 miles and pays $10.20. How much is the rate per mile? My two variables are the distance and the cost, okay? Now, which one is my independent variable? Well, the independent variable is the one that's going to happen no matter what, and the dependent variable is going to be dependent on the independent variable. So you need the independent variable to figure out the dependent variable. So if my two variables are distance, let's write this down, distance and cost, well, the cost is based on the distance, so the cost is the dependent variable, so it's y, and the distance is x. So now that I have the information, I know that Reese went 5 miles, that's his x, and that his cost was 7, which is his y. So I can write Reese's information as a coordinate, right? So Reese's information would be 5, 7, okay? Then I can also find out Cassandra's information as a coordinate. So I know Cassandra's distance is 9, which is x, and that she paid $10.20. So now all I have to do is plug in my information into the slope formula. So let's go ahead and talk about how to do that. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 minus y1 is $10.20 minus y1, which is 7, right? Those are my y2 and my y1. Over, here's my x2, here's my x1, so I would do 9 minus 5, okay? So then, let me zoom in on this a little bit, so I have a little bit more room and I can write this information down. So then you end up getting m equals $10.20 minus 7 is $3.20. 9 minus 5 is 4. So you end up getting $3.20 in 4 miles. That's really important that you label your units so you know exactly what the final answer is. So 32 divided by 4 is 8. So 3.2 divided by 4 is 0.8. So this means that it's 80 cents per mile, because remember we talked about the fact that slope or rate of change need to have units if it's in a word problem, okay? So now let's go ahead and look at question number 11. Same type of a question. Brianna and Kim join a gym. The gym has a joining fee and a monthly rate. If Brianna goes for 8 months and pays $262 and Kim goes for 11 months and pays $349, how much is the monthly rate? So the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, what are my two variables? My two variables are the time in months and the cost, okay? Now, the cost, which is measured in dollars, the cost is dependent on the time, so that means the cost has to be the y variable. So I'm going to write Brianna's information as a coordinate. So Brianna's coordinate would be 8 months, that's my x value, and she will pay $262, okay? And Kim's, she went for 11 months, and she's going to pay $349. So now I know that 8 right here is x1, 262 is y1, 11 is x2, and 349 is y2. So I can plug in all of my information right here into the slope formula, okay? So I would end up getting m equals y2, we figured out as 349, minus y1, we figured out as 262, all over 11, which is x2, minus 8, which is x1, okay? Okay, so now I'm going to figure out what my answer is. So I'm going to do my work on the side right here. I'm going to figure out what 349 minus 262 is. 9 minus 2 is 7. I can't subtract 6 from 4, so I'm going to have to borrow. So this becomes a 14, this becomes a 2. 14 minus 6 is 8, and then 2 minus 2 is 0. So I get 87. But the question is, this is 87 what? Well, this 349 was dollars, this 262 was dollars, so the difference that they paid was $87. It's the rise. And it makes sense because Kim paid $87 more than Brianna did. And then 11 minus 3, that's easy, it's 3, but 11 minus 8 gives you 3, so you get 3 months, okay? Which makes sense because right here, again, Kim is paying an extra $87, but she gets to use it for an extra 3 months. So now all I have to do with my 87 and my 3 is divide it. So let's go ahead and divide 87 by 3 and see what we end up getting. So 3 goes into 8 2 times, so 2 times 3 is 6, subtract it, you get a 2, bring down the 7, 3 goes into 27 9 times, so my answer here is $29 per month, and now I know my fee per month, okay? Now, there's one thing that I want you guys to understand. You could have done it this way, where you said that x1 was this number right here and y1 was this number right here. That is totally fine. But guess what? You can do it multiple ways. You do not have to choose Brianna's coordinate to be the first one and Kim's to be the second one. Watch what happens if I do the opposite, okay? So if I were to do the opposite, that would mean that this would be x1, this would be y1, this right here, this 8 would be x2, and this 262 would be y2. Now watch what happens when I plug it in. In the numerator, I would end up getting 262 minus 349 over 8 minus 3. And it's fine for me to put it in the opposite order. Excuse me, sorry, not 8 minus 3, I meant to say 8 minus 11. And it's okay to do it in the opposite order as long as if you put the 262 first on top, you have to put the 8 on the top, or on the bottom first, okay? So this ends up being negative 87 over negative 3. The double negatives cancel each other out, so you still end up getting a positive $29 per month, okay? All right, have a good day.